Me and I were meant to Stuttgart's Parliament to interview politicians.
Question 1. Can you give us a couple of reasons why people with learning disabilities should vote for you?
Well, the Scottish National Party are committed to people with learning disabilities having active, equal lives. I think that's incredibly important. It's why the Scottish Government introduced the Keys for Life national policy in 2013. A policy, of course, that was backed up by more than £5 million of money to organisations that work with people with learning difficulties.
I think first of all, many of my colleagues have been constantly campaigning for more resources for additional support needs. We've also led the debate on attainment, and many people with learning disabilities do not attain and do not get the opportunities that they need, and they need more support in schools. And I think that the three separate things, as well as in health, in order to make sure that people have an accurate diagnosis, an accurate assessment of their needs, and that everything is there to help them to fulfil their potential.
There's lots of reasons for people to vote Labour. We have a plan for the future of Scotland that involves everyone. We have a plan for the future of Scotland that involves people with learning disabilities. I know in this election that you've got a range of political parties that you can vote for, and I've tried to convince you of Labour's approach for a fairer economy, which values everyone in our country. But even if you don't vote for my political party, the main thing is to go out and vote.
Number 2, what policies do you have that will help people with learning disabilities?
We'll change the way in which employment works. We'll ban 0-hour contracts. We'll introduce a national minimum wage of £8 and introduce a living wage that will give a pay increase to 500,000 people. But I know it's also important to get into work in the first place, which is why we'll keep the disability employment advisors, and we'll also work really hard with charities and others alongside employers and trade unions to remove the residual stigma that there still is in our society about those with learning disabilities.
Well, one of the key things is so important that people with learning difficulties can lead the most independent lives. And I'm really proud that the Scottish Government have passed the Self-Directed Support Act. I think that's the right thing to do to maximise the opportunities people with learning difficulties have to live fulfilled independent lives.
Well, we've got quite a lot of policies, and I think probably one of the main ones that I feel very passionate about is in further education. Lecturer before coming to the Parliament. I was a lecturer for 20 years, and many people with learning disabilities came into further education, whether it was for training, whether it was retraining, whether it was for work experience and to gain qualifications. So we would want that facility within further education in order to close the inequalities for people with learning disabilities.
Question 3. Since we are trying to get people to vote for the UK general election, what could the UK Parliament do to improve the lives of people with learning disabilities?
And I think for too long there was an assumption, well, you got learning disabilities, therefore we haven't got a job for you. And I think that's wrong, and I think it's disrespectful. But I think where possible, it's important that where people want to work and they're able to work, that they're given the support, they're given the training and given the option to be like anyone else and to go out and work in the workplace.
The last time Labour was in power, we extended the rights of people with learning disabilities, as we did with people with all sorts of different disabilities, removing barriers in employment, removing barriers in access to public services, but we need to go further. That's why we'll maintain the disability employment advisors. We'll merge some of the money in the work programme and work choice, a local devolved welfare state that people have a greater control over the decisions that affect them. But we'll also go much further, ensuring that disability crime, disability hate crime becomes a specific criminal offence.
Well, the first thing they could do is stop the rollout of the personal independence payments. These are an expensive disaster so far. Our understanding is more than 100,000 people are being affected to the tune of around £1,100 or £1,200 a year. One of the urgent steps the UK Government should and must take is stop the rollout of PIP.
The 4th question, what would you do if people with disabilities are badly affected by welfare reform?
Well, we're appalled at some of the welfare changes this Tory government have driven through. They're affecting many people, including those with learning difficulties. So we're working with the NHS, with CAUSL, with disability organisations to work out what the real impact is on people with learning difficulties. And of course what we're doing in Scottish Government terms is putting as much money as we can to mitigate the worst effects of these dreadful changes.
But, I mean, I think it's only right that, you know, there is welfare reform. I think that people who can work, you know, and can get the support should be helped to get into the workplace. But I know that many people with learning disabilities and people with on welfare benefits, for many people, their disabilities have been looked at and they've actually got more support and they've got an upgrade in their benefits. And I think that's only right, that it should be reviewed every so often.
So we have to reform the welfare state so that it's much more supportive of the rights of those with learning disabilities who want to work. So for example, we'll reform the work capability assessments and we'll involve people with learning disabilities in helping to change that so that it's genuinely sensitive and it's not punitive. And we'll also act to clear the backlog in personal independent payments, because people are having to wait weeks upon weeks. It's costing millions of pounds in backlog. It would take years to clear if it continued at the current rate, but most importantly, it's causing a real sense of human misery as people are treated like numbers at the back of a queue. So we'll act on that as well.